Spencer.
And I'm JD!
Yeah. And this is the end. JD's
your boy JD!
JD is actually out in Las Vegas partying it up. Producer Eric is filling in for him very graciously.
Hi.
And today we're going to review The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask for the 3DS.
Alright, another Nintendo remake.
Woo! I'm done with the game. It took me a little over 20 hours.
He's sick.
Sorry, guys. I finished the game, but I didn't finish the millions of side quests this game has. I'm not the kind of person that goes through and finishes that kind of stuff. It's not a drive for me.
No.
But my experience with the franchise, anybody who knows me knows I played a lot of Zelda games. Played both 2D and 3D Zeldas, Ocarina of Time, and Link to the Past being my two favorites. Arguably two of the better games ever created. This one obviously is a 3D Zelda, so it takes off of the Ocarina of Time engine. It was actually made late in the N64 history. There you go. And it's kind of follows the same characters that Ocarina of Time had. It kind of repeats them, but in definitely a fresh way. It's set actually in Termina instead of the traditional Hyrule, where Link is chasing after a friend that he lost. It's hinted that that's Nayru, the little "Hey, listen" fairy.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it never explicitly states.
Okay.
And he gets kind of cornered by the Skull Kid, and his stuff gets taken, and then yada 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 falls down a tree, obviously, and then ends up in the land of Termina, which is kind of a different world, if you will.
Termina. Like, terminated?
Perhaps. Some theorists may have come up with that, but I don't know, maybe. It's all a theory.
Yeah.
It's all a theory. But in Termina, the moon is falling and will crash into Termina in 3 days. So you have 3 days to solve all this. Well, lucky for you, you can also go back in time. So at the end of the 3 days, it's basically your duty to reverse time and end back right at the beginning. When you do that, you lose all of your items, except for anything you've won from like dungeons or anything. So like you keep your hook shots and your bows and arrows, but you'll lose the arrows, and you'll lose the bombs, and you'll lose your money.
Okay.
So it's a weird take on all that, and also added to this is the darkest Zelda I've ever played.
I've seen previews of it, and I've kind of read a little bit of the story. It is pretty dark compared to all the others.
There's a lot of death. And if you think about it, the masks that you get, a lot of them are actually just dead people's faces. So you just wear.
The fuck?
Yeah, it's kind of creepy.
Oh.
Like the Zora's mask, the guy literally dies in front of you, and you just like take his face and you wear it. It's so dark.
What? Was that Leatherface or something?
Yeah.
It's like Jeepers Creepers.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty intense. It plays just like Ocarina of Time, so if you like that game, you'll fit right in here. Just 3D Zeldas. The only thing different, of course, is what I mentioned, the 3-day time issue. Overall, I consider it a positive, but it's a positive because the game made it a positive. This kind of thing could easily be a negative if you didn't handle it correctly, and to some people, this still might be a negative. But I thought the game handled it right. It gets into places where, like, if you're on day 2, a character will be like, if only I had listened to my sister yesterday. And it kind of gives you the clue, like, oh, you got to go back in time to the first day and do it.
Gotcha.
So they handle it in a way that I really like, but it could have been a disaster. Visually, this is an N64 game. They touched up the graphics, but on some days I'll look at it and I'll be like, wow, what they used to be able to pull off with an N64 is brilliant. Like, there's so much detail here and everything. Other days, what's the deal with all these pixels? What's going on here? Why are there so many pixels? Why is this game so blocky? The game is a beautiful game, but the age is apparent. That's how I'll say it.
Okay.
You can tell it's an older game, but you can still be like, wow, they did some great things visually here.
Gotcha.
Musical direction, this is a Zelda game, so a lot of really catchy tunes. I did want to say that if you play the Song of Time in reverse, it slows down time. So, just a little
Song of Time
hint for you. In this game, the Song of Time brings you back to the beginning of the 3 days.
Oh.
But if you play it in reverse, and there were no instructions that told me to do it, I just did it on my NyQuil-induced state. I would play it backwards on accident, and then it'd be like, "Oh, you just slowed down time." And I'd be like, "All right."
I wonder if there is something in there in the game that does tell you that.
I bet you there is. I just, when
You're just so smart.
during this game, I was so sick.
He still is.
I still am. And
Last week we couldn't do a show because of how sick you were, and
Yeah.
now you're still,
yeah. So when I was playing, half the time I was on drugs. I was on them drugs.
Them hardcore drugs.
So part of me does not even remember everything I've done in this game. The sound is just your typical yeah. Although when you put on the mask, you get a really creepy sound. Like, yeah, you put on the mask, and the first time you do it, you can't skip it. It's like an unskippable little cutscene. And then future-wise, you can skip them all. But you put it on, and you're like, oh, no! So, thought that was interesting. Pros of this game. It's got a lot of Zelda charm. All those characters that you like from Zelda, assuming you like Zelda, they're all there, but in kind of a different perspective on them. And they all have a lot of characterization, which is really interesting, more than your typical one, because a lot of them, you can pretty much interact with most of them, and throughout the 3 days, they have their own little stories that go on, and you can sort of save them or help them in some way, and so you kind of get to know them, which is kind of cool. Another pro is this is definitely the darkest Zelda ever, so if you really like kind of a darker, more adult tone, this game will do it. It's got great exploration. It's probably the most difficult Zelda I've ever played.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Probably. The dungeons themselves aren't that difficult, but just to get to each one takes some doing. And the gameplay is great. You're kind of more focused on the masks than the items in this game. But that's kind of a good thing at times, because those masks offer you like 3 different moves as opposed to a hookshot that offers you 1. So it kind of opens up a lot of different ways to do things.
Steal people's faces, gain superpowers.
Yep. It's like some weird dark superhero. Not a bad idea for a superhero. I'm just going to put that out there.
I think those are villains, not superheroes.
For now. Cons, I thought that the graphics sometimes showed their age a little bit, which is what it is. It's an N64 remake, so it's somewhat old school in its execution, and by that I mean you might need a guide for parts of this game. There are parts where it's like I have no idea what to do, and if I don't use a guide, I'm going to lose all the rupees I've got and all this stuff. So I was like, let's just, for the sake of time, let me just pull up a guide and tell me what to do. And sometimes it's like, what? Like one of the missions I had to do, I was going through and you have to collect eggs, but I didn't know you were supposed to collect eggs like right when you got the hook shot. And so I got the hook shot in a little area, and then I was like, wait, so what am I doing here? And then it said I was actually supposed to use the hook shot right above a fish tank, and then go into the fish tank, and then collect an egg from there. And it's like, honestly, I would not have thought ever to do that right there.
All right.
But, so just things like that. You might need a guide. If you think I'm a loser for using a guide, then fuck you. But the 3-day rule might be off-putting to some people.
Yeah.
People don't like being rushed. I didn't really like the idea of being rushed in a Zelda game. But when you really look at it, you're not being rushed because you actually have infinite time with the 3-day rule. The thing that sucks is that you do lose all your stuff. So it's kind of a hit or miss on that. It might work for some, it might not for others. But I would definitely recommend the game. Especially if you like Zelda. This is really a game for you. Like, you like 3D Zeldas. This is a game you have to try. If you're big on 2D, I would still recommend it. But if you're really into side quests and interesting characters and stuff, and you really like to experience that stuff, this is definitely a great game. It even gives you a chart that gives you a list of all of them that you can do.
Nice.
So this is definitely a game for you. Otherwise, give it a shot. It's definitely a classic. I would definitely think this game is very highly rated for a good reason. Not my favorite Zelda game, but pretty high up there.
Do I dare ask, what is your favorite Zelda game?
Link to the Past.
Link to the Past. Okay. All right.
Followed by Ocarina of Time. Well, that's it for me. I'm Spencer.
And I'm your boy, JD!
He's such a creepy liar. Make sure to like this video, subscribe, and leave your comments below on what you think about the Zelda series. We do videos
every week!
Thanks for watching.